questions, to answer those questions in our chat. Today, we are talking about what's next for knowledge management in Microsoft 365. Welcome to the Canadian Cloud Summit. My name is Daniel Glenn. I am the owner of a company called CollabFront. I am a Microsoft MVP. I run my own event similar to this. It's an in-person event. We just had it here in Nashville, Tennessee, in the States, called M365 Nashville. And we had a great time of learning, just like we are going to have today. Hit me up on all the socials that matter, as I say, at Daniel Glenn. Would love to see those pictures, those selfies. If you'd like to sync up with me, ask me questions afterwards, after the event, whatever, you can scan that QR code there, or go to danielglenn.com/hello and just fill out that form and give me your contact information and your email and your question, and then I'll email you back. As simple as that. Love to hear from you. Another way you can connect is I have a podcast that I run with my co-host Daryl Webster from Auckland, New Zealand. We have been doing that for many years now. I think it's like 7. It's maybe more. I can't remember. I've lost track. We just published episode 382 this week. So would love to have you join and watch that show, ask and give your thoughts on those updates that are coming in Microsoft 365 and the Power Platform, leaving comments and such on the show episodes. We're also audio podcast as well. So if you like audio versus video, you can do that. Okay, let's get rolling with the agenda today. We're going to talk a little bit about enterprise knowledge management. What do I mean by that, and what components are part of enterprise knowledge management? We'll talk about Microsoft Viva Topics. Anybody heard of it? Then we'll talk about doing knowledge management without Viva Topics. And of course, we have to talk about Copilot. This is the AI track. So I have to talk about Copilot. No, Copilot is playing a role here. I'm going to really talk to you about what is that role, okay, in the in knowledge management with Copilot. Okay, so talking about knowledge management, what is knowledge management? What do I mean by that? Really 4 major components. Creation, which is the creating the knowledge that is used. And that creation can come from many, many different aspects, right? It's creating documents, it's having meetings, it's having campaigns, and all those things you do in your organization. Service your customers, get information from your vendors. It is all of those things and more. So creating that content, generating that, and there's so much of that, right? And we're probably all very familiar with that. There's so much content. And so that's the first kind of step, is you have to generate the knowledge, have the knowledge, right? And then we capture that knowledge as part of our knowledge management tasks of how do we get that information and store it, get that knowledge and make it in a way that is consumable by our users, that is could be used as for tools to disseminate that information. So capturing that information and storing it. But it's not just about capturing it. And if you've been in the business world for any amount of time, you understand that data, if people are just left to store their content any way they want to, it is this haphazard folders and no metadata, generally speaking, because who needs metadata? Just throw that thing in a folder and we'll find it later, right? So we have to have a curation process. We have to be able to organize that content and make it consumable and keeping it relevant for our users. And then once we've curated it, we made it consumable, then people can collaborate on it. right? People can find that information, use that information to generate more information or make business decisions, to understand how they should really service your customers, whether that's internal customers, your employees, or external customers. Okay. Make sense? Hope so. If not, throw it in chat. But there's barriers, right? We have the needs, but we often run into these barriers of how do we make that happen without causing friction? And what kind of friction? Employee tactic knowledge can be lost, disorganized. I just talked about, even discouraged. We have this ability as humans to get our job done and keep going and not think about, well, maybe if we do this again, maybe we should have the documentation in a way that I remember what I did and my coworkers can also do what I did, right? The strategy may be missing or lacking, and which causes this poor knowledge sharing. And then employee collaboration, while we have all these tools to make it easy, actually can be difficult, can be blocked in some cases, depending upon your governance strategy and such. We'll talk about governance in a little bit. Your information may be hidden. Unclassified information is lost. All of those documents in your OneDrive that you just threw in a folder because OneDrive doesn't have metadata and you just threw it in there, well, great, but now I don't know where any of that information is. I have to use search, which, we have various degrees of success with search, right? So those, and we talk about those files in those folders. Not only are they hard to get to, but they're in silos, right? If I don't share it with you, then you don't have it, right? So that information is hidden and soon to be forgotten if you don't make it available to others in a way that they can find it easily. The details matter. And when we're talking about business processes, we're talking about information that will help us succeed in the future, now and in the future. Details matter. And I talk about search, you have to know what to search for to find that information. And if you don't know what you're searching for, then how do you get to it, right? And using those, we use tools, we use, Windows or Explorer or Mac Finder or in the browser. We're trying to find all this information. Where do you search from? How do you get to that? It can be complex. So knowing those details is important. And if you don't have the information, how do you know the details? And then we have always the case, employees are not as available as we like for them to be doing work. So you're kind of building the car as you're driving down the road, oftentimes. So that can make, obviously, be a barrier to creating and sharing that knowledge management. Well, we had a tool called Viva Topics that really was in this space to help you. And the way it helped, past tense, was really going through your content. You didn't even have to say, hey, look at this information. You could, but it'd go through your SharePoint content, go through your documents, find that information, find the people that related to that information, and then curated that content so that you could search and easily find these topics of a widget, right? Widget. I want to know what this widget thing is. Great. I can find the widget. I can find documents that, an explanation of it. I can find documents that pertain to how to create this widget. I could find experts. Viva Topics did all this for us. Now, you did have to curate it and have a manager that was managing it, but still, for everybody else, fantastic. Not only that, but it was in-page help, right? So on a SharePoint page where widget was mentioned, it hyperlinked to that place that had all that information centrally located for you to learn with wonderful cards. Anyway, well, what happened? Viva Topics was retired this year. So no more AI generated topic pages, no more hyperlinking with those topic cards in email. Emails was great. You got an email about widget and you're like, what in the world is this person talking about? You hover over it and you find out. It's fantastic. Anyway, no more search enhancements because those topics showed up in search when someone said widget, it would actually point them to that page. So it was retired. The existing topic site turned into just a regular old SharePoint site. And it was really switched. So we had a connection into the Viva Engage. So that was switched to a simplified and answers switched to a simplified topics model, little t, not big T, if we want to say it that way. So that's what happened. Why did it happen? Copilot killed it. I'm just going to say it. You're probably all thinking it. AI killed the AI tool that we were starting to use. Now, adoption was not as high as it should have been, and that also was a factor in it. So next steps for that topic center site, so that now it's just a SharePoint site. You need to review the content that's on there. You need to, if you implemented topics and people knew about it, then you're a few months away. You know, people have probably started noticing that it doesn't work the way it used to. So you need to train your users on where that content is and how to get to it. You know, I personally think if you've used Viva Topics a lot, you should integrate that in with your intranet, use that content, and continue to curate it, because remember, one of the biggest barriers to that information is not having that in front of people, right? So if you make it part of an employee experience, then people will continue to use it. And then add it to your hierarchy and your site hierarchy, your hub site or your intranet home, even if it's not a hub site, add it to that so people can get to it. Okay, so that leads us to the question of what do we do now? We don't have Viva Topics, so how do we do knowledge management without it? So let's talk about these three areas. We talked about four, which was the creation, capture, curate, and collaborate. And so let's talk about these individually here. Capture. We have a great tool in Microsoft 365 that provides the ability to take information that is stored in our file system in SharePoint and Teams, of course, because that's uses SharePoint for storage, to take that information, extract information out of it, and curate it, and eventually curate it. So SharePoint Premium allows us to capture information from utilizing kind of four major things: autofill columns. We could do PII detection. So not only can we, in this capture process, take information and start, taking action on it, we can identify whether information should be appropriately labeled with sensitive labels of, hey, this is PII or whatever. We can have a multi-label classifier. So being able to run a AI model to set a content type and determine, really the right type of model, and I'll talk about models here in a second, to run. And then we could also do redaction, right? So we're capturing this information and we are taking action on it so that it can be used in the future, right, by our users. So we could also redact information, that personal information, that private information that needs to be redacted. Syntax models helps us do all of this, right? So I, as a user, do not like putting metadata on files. If you like every time you upload a file, or you're in Word and you save a file into a SharePoint site, you like having to put in 10 columns of metadata manually. Every time you do that, raise your hand or throw a hand down in chat. Go ahead and say, because we want to know who you are. I'm just kidding. It is It is difficult to do over time. Sure, you launch a process, you're like, yeah, I'm going to update this metadata, look at it a month later, see if that metadata is all there and correct, right? So syntax models allows us to automate that process. Take a document that is saved, uploaded, and process that document and extract metadata out, capture it, ingest it, and categorize that content so that we don't have to manually do it and that it is correct, right? That we spelled everything correctly when we were putting the metadata in and all that stuff. We also have syntax models that are pre-built. So these are really great for contracts that all look the same. Maybe contracts that you're sending out to your clients, invoicing your clients, your customers, receipts that can be very structured, that are always the same. The metadata that you're trying to extract is always in the same places. Those pre-built models are very successful at doing that. It can have a very high rate of success. Now, again, I remember all of the things I just said that you would need to have a high rate of success, but they can have a very high rate of success. What about those that are not always the same, not always the same format, and you have these documents, and sometimes you have to process them with a custom model. You train them yourself. I started off a project for a healthcare organization doing some great, fantastic work. They had a fax process. Yes, fax. It was an e-fax, but it was a fax process. And they had hospitals faxing in electronically, but faxing in all of this patient information. Unfortunately, it was not all the same. Sometimes there was about 10 different types of papers that they were consuming. And so it was very difficult to say, oh, we have a model that's very much the same type of content in the page. So it did a custom model. And it had about I think I calculated about an 83% success rate, which was far beyond what they were having manually, because they had employed people to manually receive these, and they were, having mistakes done when putting in metadata. But one thing I will say, if you like regex, regular expressions, then this is the way to go. That was a trip having to figure out exactly how to narrow this down, but still it got to about 83%. Then came autofill columns. Autofill columns revolutionized the process. I had over 95% success rate using autofill columns, which is basically a column where you put a little bit of a Copilot prompt, basically, to say, look at this document and get this information. And in every column, it takes action on the document. So one at a time, it goes and looks at the document and grabs based upon your prompt. Much higher success rate versus not structured, and really loved it. The best part is you also have image tagging, OCR, M365 archive, translation, and more, and it's free. Well, not really free, but some of the limited usage is included until the end of this month. So if you haven't tried it, try it quickly to see if you can use it in your organization. Now, with my joke I just told, I'm assuming you are all laughing. Again, since you're muted, I can't tell. So if you did laugh, maybe go ahead and throw a little laugh emoji in chat. That would be great. That would help out. I greatly appreciate that. Okay. Here we go to curate. So we have created the content, we have captured it, we're ingesting it, and then we need to curate it. And when we're talking about curating, we have to talk about security, and we have to talk about governance. And those two things often work against each other, but also work together. Definition here by governance today: governance influences how an organization's objectives are set and achieved, how risk is monitored, and addressed, and how performance is optimized. That's very, very strict language there, very posh language maybe, but I like this definition. Technology governance is answering the questions of who, what, when, where, why, and how. And really, this is around, who gets to use this tool, or who accesses this content, who decides who accesses this content, what is it, when should they be allowed to do it, where is it, where should it be stored, why is it going here versus there, those answering those questions. I think this is a great definition of governance, probably because I'm the one that came up with it. So when we're talking about security, it's security and governance. You have to think about, those business goals really power the policies that you create for governance. And then those policies do governance and really define how you're going to improve the process along the way, because no process is ever right the first time. It just isn't, right? So we that's great, fine. Let's iterate and make it better. And then that brings about it, after we have governed and have this improvement process, the compliance, accountability, that everything is working the way we said it would be done. So security and governance is needed. All right. So we're curating this. We are making sure that people can find the information. Search should come to mind, right? And we can manage search intelligence within Microsoft 365. It's called Microsoft Search, right? And we have several things we can use, one being acronyms. So this is something I wish I had. It's a long time ago, I worked for an inland marine shipping company. And if you can think about vessels and think about shipping, and though, that's been around for hundreds of years, not more than that. And there's all these acronyms, there's all these shortcuts, there's these information that it took forever for new people in the organization to the shipping lifestyle to understand. Well, acronyms allow you to define an acronym. What does it really stand for? And then you're able to, again, this is users don't need to remember where that information is located. They just know what the answer is. Right? Acronyms are amazing. And if you talk in acronyms in your organization, then you should definitely be using this. There's also bookmarks. So we can create, if you're looking in your search history of what people are doing and the analytics, and you see people searching for the same things over and over again, you should probably create a bookmark. So they're not having to go through search results. They can just click on it and go to it. So bookmarks allow you to not only have a bookmark, right, link to where they need to go, it also allows you to have keywords to associate with that bookmark. And you can even have reserved keywords. When someone searches for this, tell them, give them this bookmark period. Like that's the answer, right? And so we can have bookmarks that really, and all of these are manual. You have to curate this information. We also have question and answers. Why make people search for things and hunt and go into a document to find the answer when you can just answer their questions? So you can create a Q&A, which is, again, you can have keywords associated with this to say, and someone asks about this, pop it up there at the top of the search. Hey, what is our global sales strategy? Well, here it is. Here's the actual answer. You don't have to go looking for it, right? And then provide that information to them. And then we also have search connectors, and we can connect to various types of information. Here in this slide actually is a screenshot of my actual environment where I have searched and indexed from my work environment, danielglenn.com. And so when I go and do a search, as part of my search results are those results from my external website. You can do this from other systems, right? We can bring that information in together. This is not new, but it is something that I think a lot of organizations don't fully utilize. And so Microsoft has made it very easy to do. We also get 50 million indexed items for free outside of our environment, right? We're bringing in external information. It's for free. So why not do it? Why not connect to that external system? You can connect to ServiceNow, SAP, you can connect to Salesforce, you can connect to databases, etc. Right? So you should do it. You might be thinking, though, like this gentleman, saying, well, actually, Daniel, Copilot can't use Microsoft Search features like bookmarks and acronyms. So Microsoft Search is useless when it comes to AI and to Copilot. And you would be right. You would be correct that the Copilot has been limited for reading metadata on our items. Microsoft's going to fix that soon. But also, it doesn't use those search things we've been implementing, we've been investing in our bookmarks and acronyms and curating that so that our users get great results. Well, actually, use that phrase. Microsoft is releasing Copilot Search. This is Microsoft 365 Copilot Search will be available starting at the end of this month of June 2025. This is a new dedicated module in Microsoft 365 Copilot. It is really helping you find that content that's relevant. And you can think of this as a marrying together of search, our traditional search, having bookmarks, having acronyms, all of that, and still utilizing it, along with Copilot to reason over it, using natural language searching, versus keywords in search. You might remember that a little while ago, Microsoft actually had semantic results and the ability to do natural language in search. And then they pulled that out. They actually removed natural language searching from Microsoft Search. Well, this is why, really. They didn't say that, but I am saying that because they wanted to be part of Copilot. And here we are. So Microsoft 365 Copilot Search. And it will use acronyms and bookmarks and people queries. And not just people queries of find me this person, but also what does this person do, and bringing back that information about that person, right? So you get that personalized results. It's search and chat in together. Of course, secure and private, just like Copilot. And if you'd like to learn more about Copilot Search, take out your phone, scan that QR code in the top right. That's a direct link to Microsoft Learn documentation for you to check it out. Okay. So I'll leave that there just for a moment so you can do that. And then I'm going to go to a comparison chart. Who doesn't love a comparison chart? So here it is. If you love comparison charts, traditional search, so Microsoft Search versus M365 Copilot Search. Again, being able to natural language, and everybody's getting used to that natural language concept because all of the AIs use it, right? So whether it's Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever. So being able to use that natural language to find the answers, not just the documents, but also Copilot relevant information. We can, and I'll talk about it in a little bit. This is nice if you think about Office Home, it's office.com. Well, it's now Microsoft 365.com. No, that's not right. It's now cloud.microsoft. Anyway, that landing page for Microsoft 365 is now Copilot. And having search available right there, not just a let's talk to Copilot, but also having a search that is integrated is quite nice with this new module. All right, so curating answers in Viva. I talked about that toward the beginning where we were talking about, Viva Topics was integrated with answers in Viva. It's not now because it doesn't exist, but we do have a topics process within answers in Viva. But we also really need to look at answers in Viva as that place. And it's really what people and what it was designed for is a place for people to ask questions and get answers. But this is part of your knowledge management. And because answers can then, instead of, when someone's going to ask a similar question, can suggest and will suggest an answer that's already been given. So that, again, curating this information and making it available to users where they are, where they're working, where they're trying to do and get their job done. And this really helps bring that information out of people's brains, right? And when they're answering questions and putting it down electronically in Viva so that it can be used by other people. This is, again, if you go back to the barriers of knowledge management, this is one of the biggest ones. How do I take the information, the experience out of your brain, out of Joe's and Sally's brain, and put it down so that it can be reused, so that we can make everyone's job easier? There's a question in chat. For Copilot search, is a license needed? Absolutely. A Copilot and Microsoft 365 Copilot license is needed. So check out that Learn documentation. It tells you all about that, okay? And the reason why you need a license is because it's using your work environment, right? Not web. It's a work environment, and therefore it needs that license. So answers in Viva, you can actually do an intelligent importer, meaning you can really start the conversation, get the information in answers. If you have a database of questions people have asked, HR usually has a question database where they go to every time they receive a question, so they can give an official answer, and it be the same answer they gave somebody else. They usually have one. So import that into answers so that it can be used by everyone. SharePoint Advanced Management. Now, why are we talking about advanced management and curation? Well, it's because we want to make sure that the information that is in our systems is actually still relevant and being curated and being farmed, gardened, maybe I should say, making sure that it is still relevant and it's still correct and should be used. So SharePoint Advanced Management, SAM for short, allows you to manage your environment, to detect when sites are not being used anymore, to help people understand, hey, we need to archive this information if it's not being used, because we don't want people finding the wrong information. Data access governance. Again, we need to make sure that people have access to the information they need access to and not more. So we can use reports for data access governance to make sure that we're not oversharing information. If you're using that easy group or special group called everyone except external users to secure your environment's not really secure. So let's definitely take a look at, are we oversharing content? Again, because we're helping people get to the information that they need to, which means they should have access, but people who shouldn't have access don't need to get to that content, right? Thank you for letting me pause and take a drink of coffee. All right, collaborate. Bring knowledge to your people. Teach your users really how to share. We talked about some tools, before, but a lot of times people don't know how to share. Remember when I said at the beginning, people just create content, they throw it in OneDrive, they know it's there. They know it's there. They may not know how to get to it, but they know it's there, and that's not sharing. And maybe that content belongs in OneDrive, in their folders, and shouldn't be shared. Fine. But you need to train people, help them adopt this mentality of, if this information could help someone else, it is about what I do, it can help people in the future, it can help me in the future, then maybe I should publish this. And so I need to have that content published in the flow of work and where I do my work, or easily so that's Teams, that's in Viva Engage, that's in SharePoint, wherever it is for your organization. Whatever your governance defines, train your people on how to do that, and then communicate that regularly. Saying it one time is not good enough. publishing a news post in SharePoint saying, hey, everybody, here's how you should share, and that's the only thing you ever say, will not accomplish this task. People need to hear it multiple times, as you know. We all feel that in our personal life and in our work life. But also, what about new people? New people are not going to go back and look at a news post from a year ago explaining how to share knowledge. So you need to say it often and in different ways. Share in Viva Engage answers. Of course, we talked about answers, a great way and source for knowledge intake, but also creating new topics and creating those campaigns and creating those that information to that is used by everybody else. Be the person who writes the content that Copilot returns for everybody. And I think Erica at Microsoft said that first. So make sure that you're the one, you're creating great content and it's published and available. Microsoft also, as part of the answers kind of initiative, in every community, now we have automatically top questions that are being asked. And what's mean by top? Well, it's relevant to you. It's a automatic rendering of questions that are getting the most interaction, answers, and likes and such. And it is updated over time, and it's for the last 90 days. So it shows you, okay, every time I go to a different community, I can see those top questions. Again, getting information, knowledge to people. And we can also follow Engage topics. Again, this is a way for me to fully understand what a topic is. Here in the screenshot, it's about Copilot, but is it maybe I am the expert? I need to follow that topic. So whenever somebody tags that topic, I can see it and be the steward of the information and really make sure that the information is correct in my organization. Okay. All right. So let's talk about Copilot's role in enterprise knowledge management. Time check. All right. If you haven't heard or noticed, Copilot is in all your apps. And I mean all of them, not just the ones on the screen. It's more, but I just got tired of adding icons to the screen. So they're in all of the apps, and that's the way Microsoft wants it. They want you using it, and the functionality moving forward in all of your apps is going to revolve around Copilot, whether you like it or not. I'm sorry if you don't. It's just the way it is. You've probably seen this screen, this diagram many times by now, but just talking about what Copilot does, right? And what we're focusing on here is actually number 2, which is Copilot grounding its knowledge in Microsoft Graph, and which is your content, but also the context of who you are, who you're working with, and the meetings you're in, the chats you're having in Teams, your contacts, all of that information is what's being curated and used by Copilot to not just answer questions, not just help you find things, but also create content, right? New content. And we have to remember that SharePoint grounds your content for AI, meaning content in SharePoint is what Copilot is going to use to answer those questions people have. It's going to or create new content. So if I'm getting Copilot to help me create content, it's going to use the content that's already there to help me generate more, which could have its own problems if it's bad content. So remember, we have to use advanced management to get rid of that content that is not still applicable. Copilot agents. We know now that every SharePoint site can have a Copilot agent, that SharePoint agent that is there to really answer questions and interact with content from that SharePoint site for the user. And as long as your organization has 50 Copilot licenses, and they may or may not, but just putting this note in here till the end of this month. I'm not sure if Microsoft's going to renew this or change this policy, but right now you get 10,000 queries across these SharePoint agents for free. So you can be utilizing Copilot right there where your information is to via agents. And you heard Sebastian Levert talking about this at the keynote. Agents, of course, is the way to go. Remember, you can create, because that Viva Topics site was turned into just a regular SharePoint site. If you were using topics, create an agent and have an agent on that site. Keep using that site, right? It still will use that site as its grounding, and therefore you still have AI around all that content. Remember also, Copilot is can not just in SharePoint, but it can also use Engage content. This is including questions and answers, of course. We talked about, curating knowledge that way. So it's questions, answers, storylines. So if you're posting information on your storyline and publishing it out, Copilot can use that. And if people are following you, then Copilot can use that information that you're publishing. So create good content, right? Engage will also look at discussion posts, public communities soon, storylines, and private communities are coming. I did not see an update of when that timeline is, but I know that it's targeted for this year. Okay. I talked about it before. I mentioned it. Copilot is now the new M365 home, whether you like it or not, and I don't like it. Not too many people are happy about this, including me. I don't like it at all. When I go to M365 Home, I'm looking for documents, or I'm looking for sites, or I'm looking for apps. Yeah, go find apps now. The waffle is no longer there. You have to click on apps and then go to a page where not all the apps are anyway. So then you have to click another link to see all that anyway. This is not a complaint session, but it does really bring to the forefront the idea that Microsoft wants Copilot to be at the beginning of your process, no matter if it is finding content, if it's creating content, or collaborating with each other. Microsoft wants Copilot in the middle of all that, whether you want it to be or not. That's the way it's going to be. And Microsoft will really continue to make investments to making it increasingly easier to work with Copilot. And in my opinion, also increasingly more difficult to work without Copilot. So, as a public company, Microsoft wants to make money, and therefore they want you to pay for Copilot. I mean, that's kind of the elephant in the room that everybody should acknowledge. So when we're talking about knowledge management, use Copilot, because Microsoft's going to make it even more easier to utilize and find your information using Copilot down the road. Again, they're going to make it more difficult, or I don't think actively making it more difficult, but I think just by the nature of the way things are, it's going to be more difficult to do knowledge management within organizations without Copilot. We could still use those traditional methods of using search and doing metadata tagging, whether we're using syntax or not, but without Copilot, unfortunately, I think in the future, knowledge management doesn't look like a successful endeavor. All right, so definitely use this as one of your talking points in evaluating Copilot and making sure that you're looking at it. So some takeaways. Definitely incorporate existing knowledge that you have, whether that's in a Viva Topics site, or that was converted to SharePoint site, or that is your intranet that you already have, or that's in a system outside of SharePoint. We need to make sure that we have a way of taking that existing knowledge and bringing it into a place where Copilot can consume it. Because again, of what I just said, we're going to need Copilot in the future. Whether it might not be right now for you, but it will be in the future. You will need Copilot for a good enterprise knowledge management system. Make it easy for knowledge to be captured. So whether that's using syntax, that's using autofill columns, that's my favorite right now, of grabbing information out of documents and putting and saving it as metadata, making sure it's easy. We've been talking about ever since the dip was removed. Anybody, can I get a wave or a hand or something? Anybody know what the dip is or was? Sorry, in Office, the DIP. Anybody in chat? Come on, chat. Let's go. DIP, Document Information Panel, was a way in Office, so in Word, Excel, to bring those metadata columns from SharePoint, because we stored the document in SharePoint. It brought those columns in the Office in application in Word at the top, the Document Information Panel, and you entered in the metadata right there. Now, you didn't have to do it in SharePoint. You just did it right in Office. And you could also make it to where people had to fill it in. It was a great way to making sure, and you could edit the dip and make it so that only the columns you wanted people to be able to edit while they're creating that content showed. It was fantastic. Look up Document Information Panel for a good history lesson. But Microsoft killed that out of Office. So they made it even easier to upload documents into document libraries without metadata. And because it was a pain, if you upload a document and you required metadata and the document didn't show up for people, other people, all that. So it is something we have to enable and make it easy. And of course, use Copilot. It can really make knowledge discovery easier. It's not cheap. That is correct. But if you think about it, all of these things that Copilot enables, knowledge management being one of those, but many, many, many other things, then you can start looking at the ROI differently. It's not just a tool of that answers questions and gives you a jump start on Word documents or something, right? Okay, that's my takeaways. I am going to take questions here. I want to say, yes, thank you so much for the sponsors for the Canadian Cloud Summit. Thank you so much for being a part of the community. We need companies to be part of the community to help fuel it and give it that push to help us keep learning. The middle on the screen here, that QR code is the session evaluation QR code. Please evaluate all the sessions that you attend today. Would love to get your feedback. And connect with me. That QR code on the top right. Again, fill out if you have any questions. Moving forward, we'll be connected, and you can ask me anything. So if you have any questions now, please throw them in chat. Would love to answer any questions that we have. We have maybe a minute or two here before I need to leave the virtual stage. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I greatly appreciate you. And I hope that you learned something today.